There's one mistake almost everybody makes. The second, the mosquitoes show up at camp. They reach for a can of spray. And here's the problem with that. The old mountain men, the trappers, the long hunters who lived out in this country for months at a time, they never had a can of anything. No spray. No gas station, nothing. And they still slept easy in some of the buggiest backcountry on the continent. So they had to figure it out the real way, the hard way. And what they came up with actually works better than most people would ever believe. I'm going to show you exactly how they did it. No store-bought spray, no chemicals you can't pronounce, just the old tricks, the stuff the land gives you for free. And stick with me, because the one method nobody talks about anymore, the one I think is the best on this whole list, is coming up later, and it's growing on the forest floor, right under your boots. But before any of that, let me tell you about that whine. You know the one. You're sitting by the fire after dinner. The woods have gone quiet and golden, and it is hands down the best part of the whole day. And then comes that tiny, high-pitched whine right next to your ear. Then another, then 20 more. And the most peaceful moment of your day turns into you slapping yourself in the face like a crazy person while a cloud of mosquitoes treats you like an all-you-can-eat buffet. That right there is the moment we're gonna fix. For good. The old way. Let's get into it. It starts before the first bite. Alright, first thing, and this is the one everybody skips. The best way to fight mosquitoes is to not put yourself in their living room in the first place. I know. That sounds almost too simple, but think about it. Mosquitoes don't just appear out of nowhere. They're born in water, still, standing, stagnant water. So if you set up camp 10 feet from a swampy little pond or a slow creek backwater, you have basically built your tent in the middle of their nursery. You are the new neighbor who moved in, and they are coming to introduce themselves. The old-timers were picky about where they bedded down, and bugs were a big reason why. They'd look for higher ground, a little rise, a bench above the creek, somewhere the air actually moves. Because here's a thing most people don't realize. Mosquitoes are weak flyers. They're terrible in wind, a steady breeze of even 7 or 8 miles an hour, and they basically can't operate. So a camp up on a breezy knoll is going to have a fraction of the bugs that a camp down in the still, soggy bottom does. Same goes for the trees. A thick, dense, windless stand of timber right next to water, that's mosquito paradise. An open spot with some airflow is your friend. So before you even think about repellents, think about real estate. Get up off the wet ground, find the breeze, and put some distance between you and any standing water. You can knock out half your mosquito problem before you've even unpacked, and it costs you nothing but a little bit of scouting. The mountain men knew that. Half of staying comfortable out here is just choosing your spot like you mean it. The fire is your fortress. Okay, now we get to the big one. The one tool that, more than anything else, kept the old-timers from being eaten alive. Smoke. If there is one single thing you take away from this whole video, let it be this: mosquitoes hate smoke. They absolutely cannot stand it. It messes with the way they sense you. It clogs up their breathing, and they will steer clear of a smoky area like it's the plague. Every culture that ever lived close to the land figured this out independently because it just plain works. But here's where it goes from everybody knows that to now you're thinking like a mountain man. It's not just about having any old fire. It's about what you burn and how you burn it. A roaring, clean, hot fire actually doesn't put off that much smoke. It burns too efficiently. What you want, especially around camp in the evening, is a fire that smolders, lower, smokier, lazier, and you get there by feeding it the right stuff. Green wood is your first move. Fresh-cut, living wood that's still full of moisture. It doesn't catch and blaze, it sits there and smokes like crazy. So you keep your main fire going with good dry wood for cooking and warmth, and then you toss a few green sticks or some damp wood on top when you want to crank up that smoke screen. And then you can get fancy with it. Certain plants put off smoke that bugs find downright offensive. Throw a handful of fresh pine needles on the coals, and you'll get this thick, resiny smoke. Cedar is fantastic for this. Cedar smoke has a reputation among outdoorsmen that goes back generations. Sage works, juniper works. If you can find it, even certain mints and herbs tossed on the fire add to the effect. Now, position matters too. You don't just want the fire smoking up into the sky where it does you no good. You want to sit, so a little of that smoke is drifting across you and your camp. Read the wind, set up downwind of your smudge a touch, and let it do the work. A buddy of mine calls it wearing the smoke, and that's exactly the right way to think about it. You're not just near the fire, you're letting that smoke wrap around you like a blanket. Is it a little smoky on the eyes sometimes? Sure. But I'll take a faint campfire smell on my jacket over 100 bites any day of the week. That trade is not even close. Portable smoke that goes where you go. So, a big fire is great when you're sitting around camp. But what about when you wander off to gather wood, or you're working on something 20 feet away, or you just don't want a giant blaze going? You can't exactly carry your campfire around with you. This is where the smudge comes in, and it's one of those old tricks that feels almost like a cheat code once you start using it. A smudge is basically a small, contained, slow-burning source of smoke that you can make and even move around. The old way to do it is dead simple. You take a metal can. Back in the day, it might have been an old tin. Today, a coffee can works perfect. Punch a few holes in it for airflow, and you build a tiny smoldering fire inside it. You start it with a couple of small coals from your main fire, and then you choke it down with damp, punky wood, green leaves, pine needles, moss, whatever smoky organic stuff you've got handy. What you end up with is this little smoke factory you can set right next to where you're working. Set one upwind of your camp chair. Set one near the entrance of your tent before you crawl in. The old-timers would set smudge fires in a ring around a camp or around livestock, and that wall of low smoke would just keep the bugs pushed back all evening long. And here's the human touch tip nobody puts in the books. The absolute best fuel for a smudge is dry, crumbly, rotten wood. That punky stuff you usually kick out of the way because it won't burn for a real fire, it's perfect for this. It barely flames, it just sits there and smolders forever and puts off a thick, steady smoke. So next time you see a chunk of soft, half-rotted log, don't kick it aside. That's your bug repellent right there, growing for free on the forest floor. I genuinely think the smudge can is one of the most underrated pieces of backwoods gear there is. Weighs nothing, costs nothing, and it'll save your sanity. Try it once and you'll be hooked. Plants you can crush and wear. All right, now, let's talk about the stuff growing all around you. Because the woods are absolutely full of plants that mosquitoes can't stand, and the old way was to just crush them up and rub them right on your skin and clothes. No bottle required. Nature already made the spray. You just have to know which plants to grab. I want to walk you through a few of the real heavy hitters, and this is the part where I told you we'd get to my favorite, so pay attention. First up, catnip. Yeah, the stuff that makes your cat lose its mind. Here's something most people have no idea about. There have been actual studies on the oil in catnip, and researchers found it to be remarkably effective at repelling mosquitoes. In some tests, it went toe-to-toe with the chemical stuff and held its own. The old-timers didn't have the lab data, but they knew this plant did something, and they were right. Crush up a good handful of fresh catnip leaves until they're juicy and green, and rub that oil onto your skin. It's one of the best wild repellents going. Next, and this is the one I get most excited about, American beautyberry. If you're down in the South, you've probably walked right past this plant 1,000 times. It's got these bright, almost neon purple berries in clusters along the stem in late summer. Now, here's the story. Generations of farmers, especially back in the day, would crush up the leaves and tuck them under their hats, behind their ears, even under the harnesses of their mules and horses to keep the bugs off. It was pure folk wisdom, passed down family to family. And then, and I love this part, modern researchers got curious about why the old folks swore by it, studied the leaves, and found compounds in there that genuinely repel mosquitoes. The grandpas were right the whole time. So if you find beautyberry, crush those leaves good and rub them on. That's the one I told you about, the one most folks have never heard of. Let's keep going. Yarrow, common plant, little white flower clusters, feathery leaves. People have crushed yarrow on their skin for ages, both for bugs and for cuts. Bee balm, also called wild bergamot, smells incredible, almost minty and floral, and that strong oil is exactly what bugs don't like. Sage, mugwort, any of the strong aromatic herbs you can find. The rule of thumb the old-timers followed was pretty simple. If it smells real strong when you crush it, there's a good chance bugs won't like it either. That little rule will serve you well out there. Now, one big honest warning, because I'm not going to steer you wrong. Not everything green is safe to put on your body. There's a plant called pennyroyal that's famous as a bug repellent, and yes, the bugs hate it, but the concentrated oil is genuinely toxic, and people have been seriously hurt by it. So, I'm telling you straight, be sure of what you're picking. Know your plants for real before you rub anything on your skin or near a fire you're breathing. When in doubt, leave it out and stick to the smoke. That's the responsible way to do this, and the old-timers who lasted out here were the ones who knew their plants cold. The old grease, mud, and ash tricks. Now we're getting into the really primitive stuff. The tricks that sound a little wild today, but kept people alive for thousands of years before any of us were born. Let's start with the one I warned you about at the top. The one that works but smells rough. Grease, animal fat. The old mountain men and the native peoples they learned from would render down bear fat or other animal grease and smear it on their exposed skin. Sometimes they'd mix herbs right into it. Now, part of why it worked is just physical. A coating of grease makes it harder for a mosquito to get to your skin and bite in the first place. And when you mix in those strong-smelling herbs we just talked about, now you've got a primitive lotion that's part barrier, part repellent. Does it smell like a campfire and a bear had a fight? Yeah, it does. I'm not going to pretend otherwise. This is the one I'd reach for last. But I'll tell you what, it works. And when the bugs are truly biblical, you stop caring how you smell real quick. Then there's mud. Dead simple, free, everywhere. A coat of mud on your skin does the same thing the grease does. It puts a physical wall between you and those needles, and it cools you down on a hot day as a bonus. Kids have been doing this at the lake forever, without even knowing they were using an ancient technique. When you're really in a pinch and you've got nothing else, mud will get you through. And wood ash. The cold, fine ash from your fire dusted onto your skin has been used the same way. There's some folk belief it does even more than just create a barrier. But at minimum, it's another layer between you and the bites, and you've already got it sitting right there in your fire ring. Are these the most pleasant options on the list? No, absolutely not. But I'm including them because they're real, they're authentic, and if you ever find yourself out there with nothing else, knowing you can reach down and grab a handful of mud and get some relief, that's the kind of knowledge that separates somebody who panics from somebody who handles it. And handling it is the whole point. Smoke yourself and your gear. Here's a clever one that ties right back to our best weapon. We already established mosquitoes hate smoke, so the old move was don't just smoke the air around you, smoke yourself. Before settling in for the evening, the trick is to stand near your smoky fire and basically let it season you. Let the smoke get into your clothes, your hat, your hair, turn around slow, and get all sides. You're essentially using campfire smoke as cologne, and it's the best-smelling bug repellent you'll ever wear if you ask me. There's nothing better than a jacket that smells like wood smoke. Same goes for your bedroll and your tent. Before you climb in for the night, let some of that smoke drift through your sleeping area. Air it out a touch so you're not choking, but you want that scent in the fabric. Mosquitoes that might have followed you in are going to think twice about a bed that smells like a campfire. This is one of those little habits that's basically free. You're already standing by the fire. You're already getting in your bedroll. Just be a little intentional about it, and you're stacking one more layer of protection without lifting a finger. Little habits like this are exactly what made the old-timers so much more comfortable out there than the average person would be. Destroy the nursery. Let's circle back to where bugs come from, because if you're camped in one spot for more than a night, this becomes huge. Mosquitoes lay their eggs in standing water, and it doesn't take much. We're not just talking about ponds and swamps. A mosquito can breed in a puddle, in a water-filled hoofprint, in the little bit of rainwater pooled in a tarp fold, a bucket, an old can, a low spot in the ground near your camp. A teaspoon of still water is enough. So the mountain man move, if you're settled into a base camp, is to walk your area and get rid of every bit of standing water you can. Tip out the containers, drain or fill the puddles. Don't leave anything around camp that catches and holds water. Every little pool you eliminate is potentially hundreds of mosquitoes that never get the chance to hatch and come find you. It's not glamorous. Nobody makes a poster about walking around dumping out puddles. But this is the long game. And it's exactly the kind of patient, observant thing the people who really knew the woods did without even thinking about it. You're not just fighting tonight's bugs, you're cutting off next week's. Timing and movement. Quick but important one. A huge amount of staying unbitten is just understanding when and how mosquitoes hunt and working around it. Dawn and dusk are the danger zones. Those two windows around sunrise and sunset are when most mosquitoes are most aggressive. Right through the heat of the midday and deep in the cold of full night, they tend to back off a lot. So the old rhythm of the woods makes sense. Do your moving and your hard work in the middle of the day. Get camp chores buttoned up before that evening swarm peaks, and have your smoke going strong before sundown, not after the bugs already showed up. And movement. Mosquitoes home in on the carbon dioxide you breathe out, on your body heat, and on the sweat on your skin. So when you're hot, breathing hard and sweaty, you are lighting yourself up like a beacon to every bug in the area. There's not a magic fix for that, but just being aware of it helps. Cool down before you settle in. Don't go thrashing around, working up a full sweat, and then plop down right in bug country, expecting peace. Let your body settle, let the smoke do its thing, and you'll attract a lot less attention. The woods reward the person who moves smart and slow. A bug-free bed. Last real method, and it might be the difference between a miserable night and a great sleep. Because there is nothing, and I mean nothing, worse than that lone mosquito doing laps around your head the second you lie down. The old way to fight this was cedar. Cedar boughs in particular have that strong aromatic oil that bugs don't care for, and the practice was to lay fresh cedar in and around the sleeping area under the bedroll around the edges of the shelter. You get a more comfortable bed and a built-in repellent at the same time. Fresh pine boughs do a version of the same thing. Crush them a little to release the scent, and let that aroma fill your sleeping space. Pair that with the smoke we already talked about. A smudge can set near your shelter entrance, and choosing that breezy higher ground spot from the very beginning. And you've stacked 4 or 5 layers of protection on top of each other. And that's really the secret to this whole thing. No single trick here is bulletproof on its own. It's the stacking. It's doing 5 of these together that turns a brutal night into a peaceful one. 1 method is a tool. 5 methods is a system. If you only remember 3 things. So let's bring it all home, because I threw a lot at you and I want this to stick. If you forget everything else in this video, remember these 3. Number 1, smoke is king. A smoldering fire and a little smudge can will do more for you than anything else out here, every single time. Wear the smoke. Number 2, choose your camp like it matters, because it does. Higher ground, in the breeze, away from standing water. Win the fight before it even starts. And number 3, the woods are your medicine cabinet. Learn just a couple of those repellent plants for your area: catnip, beautyberry, the strong-smelling ones, and you'll never be totally defenseless, even with an empty pack. Stack those 3 together, and you are living the way the old mountain men lived, handling the bugs the way they handled them, with nothing but what the land gives you and a little bit of know-how. And honestly, there's something really satisfying about that. About sitting by your fire at the end of the day, bugs kept at bay, knowing you did it the old way. No can, no chemicals. Just smoke, smarts, and the same tricks people have trusted for hundreds of years. It makes you feel connected to something, like you've earned your spot out here. So here's what I want from you. Next time you're out, try just one of these. Build yourself a little smudge can, pick a breezy camp, find some of that punky rotten wood, and watch it smoke. And then come back and tell me in the comments how it went, because I read those and I love hearing it when this stuff works for you out in the real world. If you got something out of this, do me a favor and hit that subscribe button. It genuinely helps the channel keep going, and it means a lot. Drop a comment with your own old school bug trick if you've got one I didn't mention, because I'm always learning too. And some of the best tricks I know came straight from folks like you in these comments. Now get out there, keep the fire smoking, and stay unbitten. I'll see you on the next one.